and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Rebecca Soames. I'm Head of Digital Marketing here at Traveltek. I'm joined by my colleague Neil Welsh, as well as Joe Sadler and Sarah Grant from Traverse Automation. So today, Traverse Automation is going to be presenting us with what they do, as well as updates on their products. Just to let you know, today's session is being recorded. We will share the recording with you after the session is over. And we'll also have a Q&A function, so please feel free to add your questions within that and we'll answer them throughout the session. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to my colleague Neil Welsh.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. So today we're going to showcase our collaboration with Traverse. So Traveltek, we're a technology company. We've been trading well over 25 years now, so we're a very significant business in that sector. And we provide a full end-to-end solution for a travel agent and a tour operator. So if you're a travel agent and you're looking for a website, or a tour operator and you're looking for a website, then we have products available for you. We have a fully integrated front and back office system that will allow you to communicate to your customers, manage customer profiles, inquiries and quotes, connect to suppliers and make bookings, and record supplier payments and generate stylish, good-looking documents for your customers. And today we're going to showcase our collaboration with Traverse because there's lots of automation that a travel agent and a tour operator needs to do. And obviously for existing customers of ours, this is a real enhancements on the services that we provide. And any customers are not with us yet that are looking to invest in a travel agent or a tour operator solution, then Traverse would be a very worthwhile addition to the services that we provide. So over to Joe now, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about Traverse as a business.
Thanks, Neil. Hey guys, yeah, Joe Sadler, CRO here at Traverse Automation. Traverse have been automating in travel now for over 17 years now. Founded by John O'Neill, who's probably was the brand for the majority of the last 17 years. We are automation data and AI specialists, typically for mid and back office automation, helping companies streamline their tasks, the repetitive manual tasks within travel. Great partnership with Traveltek. Certainly it seems to be growing every day. There's more and more things that we're learning that we can do, capabilities, solutions that we can add to a company's kind of automation journeys and helping their solutions become more streamlined and reduce that kind of human resource that are allocated into certain areas of the business. Cool. So there's kind of 5 core automatic solutions that certainly are relevant to the Traveltek and ISO and iBoss solutions that we're currently working with Traveltek customers in. So we've got like document matching. So this is invoices, confirmation emails from suppliers, receipts, etc., that can all be automated, rather than having human attention checking all these documents from suppliers. Probably the biggest discussion with Traveltek customers at the moment is certainly the schedule change solution at the moment. That isn't only for air. We're actually doing it for a few of Traveltek customers with cruise as well. Multiple leg journeys in cruise, which is obviously very relevant to notify your customers of those changing schedules and how you can automate a lot of that process. Suppliers that are booked off system, copying and pasting that information can be quite long, tedious, and a lot of errors happen from one system to the other. We can touch upon how the automatic solutions can help speed up the process, but also reduce error rates. Booking quality checks. Quite a few Traveltek customers are doing this now. Probably not as many as the invoice matching side of things and schedule change, but definitely becoming more and more popular. Those kind of bespoke processes that travel companies have and those checks that they need to implement. And then probably the final one, the data warehouse and reporting. Neil, I think you've got a few questions on this area.
I've got lots of questions, Joe, actually. So I'm going to draw upon all my years of experience within the travel industry and
Yeah.
tour operation. So before my time at Traveltek, I used to have my own travel company. I used to work for lots of different travel agents and operators. And even then, there was lots and lots of manual processes that were in place that, we had lots of people working for us and doing stuff that this kind of technology could aid them as well. So, and I think now, even more, post-booking, the work that a travel agent or a tour operator has to do after they've actually taken the money from the customer
Yeah.
is very significant and growing. There's always an event in the world that's happening, which means a lot of changes for a travel company. So I'm just going to go through a few of these and maybe ask you some really basic questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
And let's jump on schedule changes first of all. Okay.
Sure.
From a schedule change point of view, we have tour operators on our system, a lot of them, particularly cruise operators.
Yeah.
And the way that the cruise operators work is they sell cruises in advance, so outside of when their actual flights are available. Let's imagine that they're putting a package together and the cruise, and then this package is at 18 months' time, where they've got to put an allowance of the flight inside that package. They have to do that, otherwise, how can they sell it?
Yeah.
So they sell a lot of these, and then it comes to the time when they need to go and commit to that flight. But then that's where one of the resourceful tasks that they have, which costs them time, is changing indicative flight that they've already sold to a real flight in terms of flight numbers, and actually updating not just the flight numbers and the times, but also the costs. Could you just talk through how that would work?
Yeah, so I guess firstly, if you're booking the flight later than you originally proposed, the time and dates, etc., email confirmation would come in from supplier, most likely, if no APIs are available. Our RPA solution would ultimately pick up the difference between the new flight details and the change in schedule based on certain credentials and rules that we set. It will cross-reference against original time set, and we can even create automatic notifications directly to the supplier, notifying them of that change in schedule or updated times of their flights plan. So they are well notified in advance. Now, if then later on that supplier then changes that flight by an hour or 2 hours, it's important that as a tour operator or an agency, you've got to notify that customer of that change. We've even been able to create automatic solutions where we then notify them of their new flight details. But however, if it's a cancellation and there's a new flight, typically suppliers want you to accept it. So we can actually even create acceptance buttons on emails where they're notified by text and WhatsApp as well. There's been a change in schedule. Please check your email. They would then go into their email, the new change in flight or schedule of the ferry, for example, or the cruise line, whatever it may be. They then just would accept that change. Sometimes suppliers would just tell you, here's your new flight details or schedule, lump it or leave it, which unfortunately for suppliers isn't always helpful, but you've still got to communicate that with the customer directly. You give them the option to get in touch with the agency or go back into some kind of company portal where they can communicate with a human. There's lots of things that we can do. I think the most important thing to say is with cruise, if there's a change in schedule, it could end up damaging their changing cruise lines if they're doing a tour. So it's really important to make sure you're notified that, so we can notify in a dashboard report of the reason why it needs human attention, for example. But I think there's a lot of companies that get changed in schedule which are only by like a minor 10 minutes, but it's important to still action it or remove it from some kind of queue system. So a lot of companies would build a queue system of all of the schedule changes would go into that queue system, and then they need a human to check every single one and just reduce the queue. So another good thing about automatically doing it, it's removing 90% of the changes aren't even worth communicating with the customers, but you still need to administratively remove it from some kind of queue or action. So that's something that we can really help with as well.
Okay, so just to touch on that point then, to make it clear, there's sort of two
Yeah.
types of changes here, isn't there? There's a change that's actually been made by the travel agent and it's been planned,
Yeah.
as in the way that I've just described.
Yeah.
And obviously they will just want to accept that change because they're actually in control of it.
Yeah.
And then there's another kind of change which is completely unplanned. It's that sort of bombshell that you get a flight change come through,
Yeah.
and then what you're saying, what it does, it finds the associated flight in the booking record, and it won't just change the record, it will alert the business and say, hey guys, you've got this change.
Mhm.
And you can change the process accordingly to each client and how they want to manage that change control.
Correct. So, yeah, like each agency that we work with, or tour op, or even OTAs we've worked with, that all of their processes and methods are different. Some people want that human interaction. So if a schedule change comes in and they want to notify the customer or pick up the phone to them, we can raise that as an exception in a dashboard report. It's like almost like a queue system of all of the latest changes where they can go through and action them. Or we can actually create the automation all the way through to the point of communicating with the customer and even getting them to accept that change, which again doesn't need any human interaction. We can create rules based on business case. So yeah, I think the one thing I would say is the reason why this is the most probably popular solution discussion at the moment is because of Alaskan Airlines with the flight door flying off mid-flight, Boeing doing hundreds of thousands of checks on planes, quality checks now on planes before they fly. They find one minor bolt, that's loose. That's it. Flight's cancelled, changed in schedule even before it's even reached its next destination to then pick those people up. And this is why it's really important now to have less humans doing this, because it's just getting busier.
I think, and I think it's important to be able to plan for the unknown, isn't it? Like if there's no changes going on, fantastic. But what
Yeah.
if you're doing fantastic business and then you get that curveball that comes along and then
Yeah.
knocks you because you've got to use all your own core salespeople to do administration,
Yeah.
where you actually rely on the software to do that for you, and then you can concentrate on still carrying on as business as usual on the front office.
I mean,
So
let me give you a quick scenario, Neil. Like we worked with a business, I'm not allowed to name them, but they were absolutely overran. Their inbox was full of schedule changes because of something that was going on, and they missed probably roughly around about 5,000 schedule changes. I mean, this company was doing like 3 million flights bookings a year. And the schedule changes were somewhere in the region of about 900,000. There was such a backlog. They then had customers calling them that were on a Ryanair flight. Why didn't you tell us about our change in schedule or cancellation? That's the negative impact it can make on your brand. And that's why that it doesn't, if you're happy with it doing it via humans, I mean, this company had 12 full-time humans processing schedule changes a year. That's a lot of human resource. And they still weren't getting through to them quick enough or round to them quick enough. And the human could miss it by clicking on it. Oh, hang on, I'm going for a coffee, come back, and then miss that schedule change. That could impact people not being notified of their flight even being cancelled. They turn up at the airport and they're like, why didn't you tell us? And they bought a package holiday from you. That's the negative impact of not being able to handle it.
Yeah, that's right. You've spot on there. It's about accuracy, isn't it? So we're all human. We all make mistakes, don't we? But code logic, it does exactly what it does. So it's going to check something and it's going to make that change if the logic is preset. So just one other question, and you did touch on it before we move on to one of the other services. Flights, cruises. Some of my clients also do a lot of ground arrangements as well, transfers particularly, maybe city tours where things change. They might use a different kind of transfer bus, that and costs change accordingly. Can you incorporate any kind of a travel type within this kind of service?
Yeah. Providing it's justifiable. We normally say if it's like a 50 to 100 bookings a year, there's just no point in trying to automate it. We could probably look at an AI solution to be built to just try and at least raise them. But sometimes if the booking volumes are too low, it's sometimes not even worth looking at automating in that area. But that being said, we now have an AI solution that's probably about 95% of the way there, where the smaller ancillary kind of transfers and tedious suppliers that sometimes even write it in written format differently every time, it will start to be able to pick up on those areas as well. So yes, for the future, I'd say probably next year, but unless it's something that's quite high in volume, that's when it's probably worth looking at.
Brilliant. Okay, I think we've covered that now. So I'm just going to talk about now one of the other icons there, which Traveltek, the core system, does support some as well, which is booking off system.
Yeah.
Obviously, Traveltek, our sort of place in the market is providing search and book solutions to travel companies, travel agents, and tour operators. So in an ideal world, when you're using our software, then you would find the product you need and make a live booking. But the reality is every travel company out there is looking for the best product they possibly can for their customers, the best product and service, and obviously trying to maximize their profit. So, it's a changing landscape in terms of suppliers all of the time. So at Traveltek, we recognize that. So we've already integrated sort of P&R pools, as we call them, to cruise lines to capture booking information. But there's always a long list of suppliers that travel companies will want to connect to and make bookings with that are never going to be integrated on a core booking system. And so could you just chat through how it would work from a travel person's point of view, a travel agent's point of view? Let's imagine they're booked with a hotel supplier that's not booked on Traveltek, not available on Traveltek. How would it work? Where would they go, and what do they need to do?
So the scenario for Traveltek is that there's kind of two ways that we can do this. We find it a lot actually in luxury bespoke travel providers. They seem to be the area where booking off system is probably needed. Confirmation wizards. There's two ways that we can do it. Say if you've got a supplier that doesn't have that API integration directly into iSell and iBoss, etc., then the agent has to book onto the supplier's portal or directly on a website, but then they have to then copy and paste that information directly into wherever it needs to go in Traveltek system. Ultimately, what it does is it can do it live with the agent. So if the agent needs a live feed, because there's fields that they still need to complete in Traveltek, once they've reached the confirmation page of the supplier portal or the supplier confirmation, it will then ask them, do they want to start confirmation wizard? They click yes, and then they'll start to see all of the fields being auto filled out by the robot, which obviously improves accuracy rates far higher than it would be for a human. We're often finding about 50% error rates when booking off system. But the good thing as well, there might be more fields in Traveltek system than there are on the supplier portal that the agent still needs to fill out. It will actually prompt the agent at these mandatory fields so that they need to fill it out. So it will copy and paste all the information that is on the supplier portal. It will also prompt the agent when to do it, fill out other fields. Now, there is one more way. If the agent's not desperate to get that information into the system immediately, we could pull it from a confirmation email directly from that supplier. So let's say someone's booked on the supplier portal, email comes in with the confirmation, we can create an RPA solution to pull that data and then import it directly into. So that's something else we can do.
Okay, so it doesn't the travel company where you're collecting the booking from, they don't have to have an API. It could be literally just scraping the booking confirmation or any mechanism where you can actually get the booking itself. Then you can come and get that booking and put it into the back office.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The one scenario that we had today is that the agent, and this is actually a Traveltek customer, they really want to do it live because there are certain agent fields that they have to fill out in their other system.
Mm-hmm.
They were actually using confirmation wizard the other way around. Cruise was just a small area of their business. They were actually completing it on iSell, but they needed it in their other system. So they were actually using confirmation the other way around, confirmation wizard. So, but they needed that live because they needed prompts for our agents. If they don't need it live and you just need it fed within that day, as soon as that confirmation comes in from the supplier, we can push that into your back office system. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can think of two very obvious savings there. The first obvious saving is obviously from a travel agent's perspective.
Yeah.
I'm a sales user in a call center or in a shop. It means that it's going to save me a lot of time. I don't have to put it in. And then from a business point of view, from an operational point of view, it means whatever I've booked is actually exactly what I've booked, rather than me typing it in the back office and getting it wrong. Again, we're all human. I could type the name in wrong. And then what it does do then, it then reduces the amount of documents you need to match, doesn't it? Because obviously you've made the booking and you've captured it. So, what's the point? It's already automatically confirmed. So we're seeing that with our own work with the cruise PNRs that we've done as well. So I can see how that's really valuable. I'm just going to move on to one of the other services there we've got, which is the booking quality checks. That's not on the next slide, is it? The booking quality checks?
No, it's not. No.
Yeah. So the booking quality checks, I think, is where it's going the next level on from document matching, where you're highlighting stuff that's wrong. Is that what that is?
Not necessarily. This is a very broad kind of solution. Every customer that we've ever worked with has different processes, different checks. So if there is a checking process where someone is checking against a PO, for example, or checking against amount that the agent originally put in there, checking commissions, etc., from suppliers. There are so many different checks that travel businesses have. We had one the other day that has two checks from two different teams before it's even signed off, and it's like, wow, all of that could be automated, and all they're doing is checking against the PO, and then it comes through to someone else, and then they're checking against their work, and it's just, you could automate a lot of those processes. It's just about, if you have a process internally where there is a check on the booking or against supplier, or a lot of the document matching stuff probably does a lot of these checks anyway, but there might be a process internally where something needs to be signed off by someone, or something needs to be approved by someone. And that approval system at the moment sometimes is they upload it into a system, they go into a system, they then go and check it. And actually a lot of those checks could be done by a bot, and it could save, we could do 100 an hour, like of these checks, where a human could take, do what, 10 to 15 an hour. It's,
I get you. So, it's a travel agent, and particularly a tour operator, has a lot of responsibility these days in operating, where they have to do certain things. And obviously a business will then put checks in place to make sure that they've done their best to avoid any problems in the result, or do their best to make sure that they've booked exactly what the customer wants. So I guess you could incorporate things like passport details. Have you collected the passport details? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we do a lot of that for quite a few customers. That being said, again, everyone's process is different.
One's different. Yeah.
I think this is probably, like, even these booking quality checks, we've even done documents from supplier actually checking that they're formatted right to meet new European laws. Invoices to meet new European laws because of the new taxation thing, where they have to list the tax and the commissions on that invoice, and just making sure documents are checked before they go out to the customers, even though they're sent to the seller of that package first. There are so many things that a travel agent has to do and meet certain rules. It's just creating little triggers to say, yeah, that's been checked automatically, that for things that don't need a human eye. We get it, there's still things that a human eye need to check. Good news is, though, we could create a system to help create a queue for those checks. So those things that do need a human's attention, raising those to that team, so they don't have to trawl through their emails or look on a system and download it, check it, and all these things. Just having that one view where they have a check system. If it's documents, they click on it, it will show the document on the side of the screen. They can give it an eye. Yeah, actually, that's fine. Approve, and then that's removed and sent to where it needs to go, even automatically through the customer. So yeah, whatever kind of check process or quality check process that you've got, whether that's booking or financial, customer information, these kind of things, these are all things that we could probably create some automatic process. So yeah.
That's great. Thanks, Joe. So we've got a couple of more slides, haven't we? With a deeper dive look at document matching.
Yeah, probably our first solution that we work together
Yeah.
on. Yeah, so supplier typically with tour operators would send confirmation invoices, tickets into a centralized email inbox. Our
Yep.
solution will extract that data and download that invoice, compare that against what's in the booking system. If it matches, send it to where it needs to go, whether it's a financial system or a back office system for it to be paid. If there are any errors, which we all know suppliers do love to make errors, that will be raised as an exception in the dashboard report, where it will even explain the reason. They'll be able to see the invoice there, so they can actually see, and we can highlight those areas in that invoice where there are errors. For example, it could be cabin with a sea view was actually booked, but we've got cabin internal view, like, or deck view, for example. You know, that's two different descriptions. We need to make sure that we've got the right one on the supplier. So that would be a supplier error on description. It could, like, with breakfast included, but then on the invoice it comes through and it's no breakfast included. But actually on our package it says breakfast included. So all of these things that you've got humans who are just trawling through documents every year, and just comparing it against booking systems and having to deal with that, it dramatically saves time. I think, Sarah, how much time one of our client actually saves? Is that how much is it improved?
Okay. Yeah.
I can't remember.
Well, I used to
about?
remember, Joe. I used to remember the people who used to work for me years ago, and they used to
Yeah.
do exactly this. Nothing's changed. They used to get the confirmation, and even having someone do that and sit there, check the confirmation, and then initial the confirmation to say they've checked it. We're all human, as I said. They
Yeah.
checked it. They've just, because they're doing so many, it misses their eye. They just miss it.
Well,
So
another thing as well, I guess, going back to that, to explain a human, we've worked out, we've done 59, I think, now workshops with businesses in this particular area. And we've worked out that on average, a human could handle 15,179 documents a year. So if you have over 15,000 supply documents coming into your inbox, you need a human full-time to check all of those documents. If you're doing 50,000, that's a lot. That's a lot of humans. You're starting to you get to 90,000. It's like all of a sudden you're spending over 150 grand a year on human resource, if not more. And what we're saying is that a human can do 15,000 a year, or our bot can do 100 an hour supply documents, and dramatically reduce that cost in resource. And I think this is why it's probably been our most popular solution for certainly the last 12 years. And it's bespoke. An off-the-shelf solution will not recognize the changes from suppliers, whereas ours would. So yeah.
I was just about to ask you. I've got a few questions here that I'll sort of bunch together, if that's okay. So, as you said, it's a mature product, isn't it? It's not a new product, so you know it's been through and it's tried and tested. So what if the confirmations change? Because they do sometimes. The tour operators change and they're not going to bother telling anyone because they don't. So Addy, what do you do about that? And what else was I going to say to you? What happens? How do you, because obviously these confirmations have to go to an email account. Can you check multiple email accounts in terms of, sometimes my agents get them rather than sort of the admin act. And the last one, I'll give you 3. How does it work for new suppliers? I get that obviously you've got the biggies already in, the Jet2s, the EasyJets and the cruise lines. What if I've got a supplier, actually I do quite a lot of work for, and it probably will warrant it, but probably no one else does. What approach is there?
Okay, so start with the first one. So suppliers do change things all the time. Good news is that not only have we adapted to these typical changes, let's mention one, Ryanair. We all know that changes their format of emails, the emails it's sent from. Good news is, although we write scripts for RPA scripts for core suppliers, and this is why an off-the-shelf solution doesn't work in travel, because it's not scripted. It's trying to recognize that first invoice and that first invoice only. And then you have to then log where the fields are, etc. And it can be long, tedious, and it's quite heavy in support. We did have a customer actually who probably invested about close on £1 million in developing an off-the-shelf solution. And then they came back to us 2.5 years later and just said, we wish we just came to you sooner. And then the reason is because our solution, we have a task flow solution, where we write all of our RPA scripts and write the I guess the way that the process works, the rules that are set by the customer. So ours is adaptable. We've implemented AI as well to recognize those changes from suppliers. So for example, Ryanair send it from a different email, it would still pick it up because Ryanair is the provider. The format of the document is wrong, but it will still pick up them changes. And actually using that machine learning is only enhancing our solution to be, more accurate than others, which is why no one else is, everyone's avoiding it in travel, because it's a lot of support if it goes wrong. Whereas we've been lucky enough to be in the game long enough to understand those changes before it even started. So the second question, Neil, was it multiple email inboxes, or was there something else?
What it was is, say, like a lot of the suppliers, they send them to sort of admin app, but sometimes they don't. They send them to, I can think of a few suppliers that actually send it directly to the sales agent as well. So I've got quite a lot of email accounts, let's say.
In those cases, we could create a lot of rules to then do an auto forward into an email inbox. However, if there are multiple, we've got some customers that have multiple email inboxes based on whether it's flight, cruise, hotel, ancillaries. We can take it from wherever inbox. Again, it's creating rules based on the suppliers. So if we have a list of core suppliers, making sure that we just have that rule set up from the start.
Okay, that makes sense.
The last one about suppliers, was it?
It was. Let's say I've got a new supplier. It's not on your list of supported suppliers, even though your list I know is significant, but it's not. What's the approach?
We would just add it. We'd write for it. Just because, if anything, actually, Neil, although we have a list of core suppliers we've worked with, like for example, Norwegian Cruises, like very popular, one of ours that we've always worked well with. It actually sometimes, they make a change. It can be more difficult than adding a new supplier. There isn't a supplier that we can't do it with unless it's in written format. I guess we wouldn't really want an invoice that's right. We haven't reached that level yet. Maybe catch us in 4 years, but I would say that adding any supplier, it's just as long as we have examples of the invoices that you receive or the confirmations from the customer, we'll just make sure that we build the rules around that particular supplier to make sure we pick up on the changes that supplier makes before we even implement them. But ultimately, there's not really a supplier that we wouldn't look at, and we've had some extremely complex ones where we've even had to go and retrieve the invoice. MSC is a good example. We've done that quite a lot where we've actually they haven't sent us the invoice, but we've set up a script to log into their portal to then retrieve the invoice for that particular person. So we'll take a look at it case by case, but ultimately we can do it. So.
And the last question, from a super high level, how big a business do I have to be to make this pay? And what is the costing model? Is it per booking that you charge? And if I turn in over a couple of 100,000, I'm assuming it doesn't make sense in terms of I could probably just do it myself. Or is there a mindset? I guess it depends how ambitious I am and how I want to grow as well, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've had some people who do 5,000 supplier bookings per year, and and that's absolutely fine. These people who have the ambition to grow 20% year on year, I then sit there and go, well, in a couple of years, you're going to need a full-time human doing this, or you can set yourself up now. A good example of this, we've recently worked with an enterprise company who is massive. They have like 51 full-time admin clerks just in their financial teams, and they are coming late to the party of automation. They're tempted to do things themselves, not quite hit it on the head. They're now making that change, and they turn around now and say, I wish I did this when we were one person. And that's the difference, is if you've got the ambition to grow to a 100,000 supplier booking a year company, it's justifiable even at the start. It's like, okay, it costs you a bit of money to set it up now, but you then don't have to think about it. I speak to some MDs who do their invoicing matching process for their companies. They're like a team of 3-4 people, but they've got no one else to do it. They see the value in it because it's removing that resource from them so they can carry on actually working on the business. So is there a point to start doing it? If I was just, in fact, actually, someone asked me this question the other day. If you were to set up a tour operator, or an agency tomorrow, when would you start automating? I'd have it automatic almost immediately. So then it's something you never have to think about. And then your margins are always going to be in front. Because a lot of people, what they do is they grow really quickly, which we'll come on to in a couple of slides actually. But then they hire people, and then it just becomes a knock-on effect, and they go, oh, should we look at this now? And then all of a sudden they grow a bit more, and then they hire more people, and before you know it, you're like 15 people in your admin, and you're like, wow, we need to become more profitable because we want to sell. And it's just like,
and you can use that resource rather than replacing it. You can reuse that resource to actually make more business, doing more proactive things in product. And the other thing to say is that even if you've got that resource doing this kind of stuff, replacing it with RPA, the RPA is accurate. So you might have 5 people doing this, but it doesn't mean they're not going to make a mistake by spotting it, because that's what we're saying, isn't it? That it's that a human could make a mistake, whereas the bots don't.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I've covered all my questions on document matching.
Sure.
Another one, haven't we? Yeah. Okay.
This one is obviously it's more for data reporting. The funniest thing is that Traveltek customers probably haven't had many for the last 6 months. All of a sudden this week we've had 5 come through who all want to understand the analytical data, comparing against the last 2 years in growth, understanding their margins, their commission differences, cancellations, etc. Utilizing that data, spitting out reports that are customizable to themselves. We've got some Traveltek customers that have anywhere between, I think, 10 and 14 different types of reports that they now push out. So it's creating a data warehouse. So extracting that data from iBoss, pushing it into some form of kind of BI or MI report that it's relevant to the customer, and giving them that visibility from a click of a button. So we have some Traveltek customers who click a button, it generates a report during a date range, etc. And we can do lots of customizable things, but ultimately it seems to become more popular, certainly when some companies are getting to year ends or their year end. And that maybe that's why it's really popular, because it's March and financial years for some is next month. So
I mean, the reports that Traveltek provide as standard in the system are very flat data. All right, so they're not visual at all. So just looking at that snip there of those sort of reports, they jump out at you straight away. Whereas obviously the data they could run within the report is very flat. You really got to look for it.
That's a very old report, by the way. That's we are, the look and feel of it is a bit better now with a new logo.
All right. So the one thing, a few questions on this one then. So the inquiry, the quote, and the customer data within the Traveltek platform and the back office data is segregated. Actually, it's one of the challenges. Actually, using our API, are you able to take that data from all these different places and then present it within your reports?
Yeah, and if you're using multiple systems as well. So
Okay.
even financial systems, we can bring it all into one area and create reports that people want. It depends on what the visibility in actually it depends on the Traveltek API. We're quite lucky because we get that visibility that we need, but there are some systems that's quite difficult to obtain that data. So we sometimes need to do data extract completely and then upload a CSV and then compile that report from there. And but we're quite lucky in this case where we got an API, we could pull that data out, push it through into our data warehouse, spit out reports when they need them, and then have that visibility that they need in all the areas that they need. So we haven't yet to have an area where we've gone, oh, we can't report in that area. I don't think anyway, from when I last checked, but yeah.
So one of the requests that we get a lot within the Traveltek system, the reports we have are real time, so they're very standard. So a lot of customers are looking to sort of see, well, what was my position last month? Rather than running a report now for last month, you get a different picture of in terms of what it was last month when you run it. So are you able to provide sort of movement reports based on dates and periods?
Yeah, so for some customers, they want on a Monday, they come in and the first thing is an automatic report sent to them. And it's just reflecting in the last week of sales versus the week before, whatever. It's customizable. So providing we got access to that data, we can write reports for it.
Okay, and let's say I'm a travel company and it's just full of the business is full of sort of travel salespeople. We don't actually have any sort of any data management people. The reports that you provide to us, would it be quite easy for anyone to actually use? Do we have to have a certain skill set within the business to actually use the tools that you provide?
No, I don't. I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't say so. Some people like creating their own reports. So we create the data warehouse and they'll write their own reports using like Microsoft BI, for example. But a lot of customers want us to build the reports as well. So they're built around what you need. We've got a customer that me and you spoke about last week actually, who's just about to implement this, and they want 8 to 10 different reports, and that's fine. Okay. And they're all obtained from the data that we're getting from iBoss, so it's fine.
Yeah. I was going to say we also like integrate with Google Analytics and Facebook and things like that, don't we? So all in with iSell, so it's really good.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all the questions I've got down. Rebecca, has any questions come from online?
Yes, so opening it up, if anyone has any questions, I think, Neil, you've asked plenty of great questions there, so no open questions yet, but if anyone has further questions, please feel free to add it into the Q&A function there.
Cool. So I think we always like to promote this, by the way, Neil, that, people go, what else can I automate? I think I've recognized a few names on this call. We often get questions from our customers. Oh, we got this repetitive human task or check or whatever it is. Can it be automatically processed? If it's processed by a human that's moving data from a system to a system, or a document that's been checked, or integrating systems together, the likelihood is that we can automate that process. So tour operation reports, they're quite time consuming, collating names from bookings, sending them to the DMCs and suppliers at agreed times before departure date. That's been a big one lately. Another one is automatically raising it to agents. Do you still need this booking with a supplier? Because a lot of the golf tour operators will contact the hotel and put it into a quote, but they've actually booked that with the hotel, and then all of a sudden 2 days before, you get an email from the hotel supplier saying, looking forward to seeing you in 2 days, and actually that quote's not even gone ahead. So it's then even creating like automatic reminders and stuff like that to notify some of the suppliers that you might be booking in advance. And then supplier payments as well. It's quite a big one. Going into this is ready to be paid solution. So if you think about it, if it's being processed by a human at the moment, it can be automatically like processed. I think the next slide actually, Rebecca, touches upon kind of when is it the right time to invest in RPA. And I know Neil mentioned about this, but if you can imagine at the start of that roadmap, you know, you're starting to get sales, you hire more people in sales, and all of a sudden that increase in volume then makes you have to hire the admin staff to process the documents, tickets. All of a sudden, then that increase in volume of sales, then you hire in financial support, and then before you know it, you've got teams and teams of people in multiple departments that are processing things that could have been automated right at the start of the journey. So you might ask about when's the best time to invest in RPA. Well, or any kind of automation. It's got to be when probably as early as possible. And I know it's hard for some people to justify the spend, but once you reach 10,000 supplier bookings per year, it's then justifiable. We can then compare it to the cost of a human being. But then as soon as you get to 20, 30, 40, 50,000 bookings per year, my God, the savings you're making is like, I think one of our customers saves like 90% of human resource per year now that they were spending, which equated to, I think, £500,000 a year in human resource. So,
and it's the errors as well, isn't it? It's the unknown errors. It's not only it's the results, it's that gotcha where you haven't checked it and suddenly it's cost you a lot of money.
Especially with the booking off system and document matching. Document matching, the amount of times that we've done workshops for businesses and the admin clerk saying, yeah, I checked them all, and we've then picked up on something like a loss of £4,900 a year in commission loss because they didn't check the invoices properly. Can you imagine if your business is losing 4,900 quid a year because you just weren't checking your documents properly, or you didn't have an automatic solution that could do it for you? And that's a big area that people aren't aware, especially enterprise companies. They have teams and teams of people, sometimes offshore as well, that are processing, matching all these documents, processing them for payment. They're paying the bills, and they're not realizing until like half a year later that that's inaccurate. When we've lost money on that holiday, how did we lose money? And then they've then gone back and checked the invoices, and they're like, oh my God, we didn't check this invoice. It's for £545, but actually it was like £200, the original price from the supplier that we checked. But the supplier's not going to care. They've sent you an invoice. If it's wrong and you pay it, that's your fault. You know, and that's why the checks within automation, there's no human to blame then, is there? It does the job for you, and then no one gets fired. They're doing a job that they actually need human attention for, you know. So yeah, this is quite a good slide. So yeah, it works with Traveltek because we have a good relationship. We now have APIs available. All of these solutions that we've ran through today have all been tried and tested. So the only thing I would say is if we've not covered off something that's a human problem, you know, drop me and Neil an email together, or, you know, or a message, or message Neil or whoever your Traveltek contact is, and we can get a discovery call in. We'll give you some free advice. And if we can help you and there's a justifiable business and you want to become more scalable, you know, let's have a look at it, even if it's not on today's agenda of solutions. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it from me. Anyone got any questions for me? Any areas of automation that they may be looking at where they want to, you know, kind of look at whether it's even possible? Maybe an area that they're looking to improve on, become more scalable. Feel free to ask.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Neil and Joe and Sarah as well. Just a reminder, we will be sharing this recording with you shortly, and so you can rewatch or share with your colleagues as well. And if you have any questions, we'll also be sharing the contact information for Neil and Joe so that you can get in touch to learn more.